Everybody's having fun. We're off to a great start here, and we have a speaker back again, Alani, very big supporter of decentralized and utility in blockchain, and always got great stuff for us about Web3 growth, marketing, product market fit, and inspiration there. So thanks for joining us, Alani. You're muted right now. Just maybe do a mic check first before I hand it over. I know he's got the professional setup. Hopefully it's all connected.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, now I hear you loud and clear.
All right. That's awesome.
All right.
Glad everyone can hear me.
I'll hand it over. I'll be in the back if you need me, but take it away, Alani. Thank you so much.
All right, awesome. It's really nice to be back here. I do enjoy interacting with the the Handshake community, and it's great to see the evolution, the growth, and sometimes growth goes forward, backwards, sideways, up and down, but that's just market elasticity, and there's not much we can do about that, but our best. For those who don't know me, I'll just do a very quick introduction. I've been in the tech space since the year 2000, late 99, actually. I started as an engineer, and I moved into more executive roles over time. I was there for the transition from Web 1 to Web 2 and into Web 3, going into Web 4, where I manage enterprise programs from PDSI, where we built the first data center, micro data centers, which we put into shipping containers and sold to the US government. Exited that. That company was acquired by Hitachi Data Systems, and then moved on to other roles, managing enterprise groups out in Western Europe for Praxair and also in the United States, and then moved on to BAE Systems in the Netherlands, out of Amsterdam, the Netherlands, where I managed defense-based ERP systems for light communication calls. After that, I went into pharmaceutical, basically did the same thing for supply chain and logistics systems. And then I co-founded another company, Flatbed, which we built to about a 35,000 workforce system. At some point, we're actually the largest of goods for Alibaba. We had all the shipping lines moving goods through the port of Charleston into the United States. And that's fun. There's a video floating around on the internet that Alibaba did a special on us from that event. And then about 8 years ago, I got into Web3. I was the first head of ecosystem and head of accelerator programs at Akash Network. Prior to that, back in 2017, we integrated SkewChain, the very first blockchain integration into Web2 enterprise. So that was my introduction into blockchain. Then a few years later, got involved with Akash, moved on from that, went to Stellar, headed up their wallet program. Through those times, did a few investments. I've done quite a few of them, quite frankly, just under 30 million direct and indirect. Advised a lot of teams, helped a lot of teams get listed on exchanges, raised private equity, did a bunch of things. Here I am. I'm a real decentralization maxi. So please, if you have any questions, drop them in chat. Feel free to follow me on Twitter as well. Now, there are simple things I'd like to focus on during this talk. And that is, if you take nothing away from this conversation, bear in mind, it always comes back to the user experience for three main reasons. One, you can't scale what you can't simplify. In 25 years in this industry, in tech as a whole, every successful platform, and that applies to consumer products, anything in life that's been successful, is because it's been easy, the key value prop obvious, and it's scaled as a result of that. Love or hate Google, the homepage is still the same. Over 2 decades later, you can start your own journey, and then you can progress from whence you started. It's that simple. All this I was an engineer, I get it. But all the tech, your tech stack, all this mumbo, no one cares. What they care about is, can I enter and exit conveniently without disrupting my day? That's what keeps them coming back, period. If you can't solve for that, you're not going to make it. It's that simple. And some of the teams have advised, we have Preto, we have CloudMos, and a few others that they got acquired. The best devs I know, and I know a lot of them, they're actually philosophers first, developers second. For that one reason, because they understand the human condition. Low cognitive load is what accelerates adoption. If you can't solve for that, go work somewhere else. Okay. Secondly, growth is a function of engagement and velocity. What that means is how you engage proportionate to your velocity from a purely business perspective is where growth comes from. And I'll give you an example. Projects get distracted by vanity metrics. Okay, you put something on X, on Twitter, and you got 10,000 likes. Did you get 10,000 new users? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. So where should the focus be? Okay, velocity. If you put out a post and you get 10,000 reactions and you adjust for organic and inorganic, and maybe 100 of those reactions are real, and your top business funnel starts with 10 and your conversion is at 1%, multiply those, that's your growth. That's what you're solving for. That's where your growth is. Scaling now becomes a function of how can you resource that growth number to attain your desired results. If you're not solving for that, again, you're just pouring water in a basket, hoping to fill it up. Finally, as I started on this slide, low cognitive load. Any given day, right now, right before this session started, I counted the number of tabs I have open. There are 36 of them. And by the end of tonight, I end up with 0 tabs open. That's my typical day. If I have if using your system requires me to take time out of my day and ignore my 36 tabs for the next hour, that's friction. It's a net negative. If I asked you right now, do you like pain or pleasure? Everybody likes pleasure. So it's got to feel good. So what's easy to use is what I'm going to keep using. I don't like Google, but I keep using it. It's that simple. Same thing with Gmail. As much as we all know that Google is crawling and indexing and scanning all your emails and photos and private conversations and all the juicy stuff in there, guess what? Everybody still uses Gmail, right? Even for work, because it's easy. Same thing with a Tesla. You get into the car, you just drive. You don't have 50 buttons, which you never use and you never touch, but it looks great, right? Same thing. Low cognitive load is what leads to accelerated adoption and vice versa. And on this particular slide, I always say CLI sucks. And it's crazy to say that as a former engineer. In my experience back in the day, if we had a senior executive trying to bother us, just put up the CLI and tell them you're busy. They'll leave you alone, right? The reality here is it doesn't scale. If I have to terminal somewhere pseudo over there, it doesn't scale. The facts don't lie. It limits your audience, it decelerates adoption, and it slows down growth. People like point, click, click. When I changed the Akash community system into the Akash Accelerator, and more importantly, as head of the Akash ecosystem, the first thing we did was, as a prerequisite for funding any teams, UX was number 1. Our provider set within 30 days went from 11 to over 400 within 30 days. Okay. It got to a point where our ecosystem partners were making more money than Akash itself. That's why those two, Preto and Cloud, got acquired. Because people like browser point, click, click. Period. When your own partners are making more money than you, you've hit the mother load. And that's exactly where we were. So from a strategy execution standpoint, there's really three things you do: incentivize, engage, and retain. Esotericism doesn't scale. Now, if you're building for just you and your friends so you can brag on Twitter, have at it. But if you're building for humans, you need to tone down the technical speak, simply because at some point people will get fatigued and they'll go to the next easiest. Today, I mean, I've seen systems where I know it was a superior system, but it was so hard to use. I don't have the time. Okay, I would rather pay the premium, even though it costs me more, for something that's easy to use. And that's just not me. The facts don't lie. That's how humans are, period. Now, there's an intake analysis and decision-making process when you scale ecosystems, when you grow in your from strategy execution standpoint. You have to combine your program and business development, marketing and social channels, and your DevRel programs. In a nutshell, you build a business because you have bills to pay, you got to keep the lights on, and you have general expenses. My X handle is just that, Alani Kuye, first name, last name. That's my handle, just Alani Kuye. You can find me there. And you have to due diligence who's building on top of the platform, because your operating velocity has to yield enough data whereby your data literacy drives your decisions. And the feedback loop is based on data integrity that's guiding future activities. So by the time you onboard dev, they're building for humans, they're building qualitatively, and they're building stuff you can sell. Because at the end of the day, no matter how you spin it, we're all selling something. And the folks who win are the ones who can tell. It's all storytelling. If you can't tell the story without going into technical details, you're not ready, period. And then the typical business and risk management pillars is what ensures your desired results are clearly in focus, because then your key value prop is obvious, which means you have to plan the work before you walk the plan. Okay, the technical and functional and business and the financial roadmap on top of your technical specifications, timelines, and milestones. And then your business strategy has to be backed up by your revenue model and your go-to-market and marketing plan, simply because you want to make sure your partners have a plan to stay in business. Because no matter how you spin it, everyone loves decentralization, right? But it's not a charity. It's a business. You have to treat it like a business. It's that simple. And your risk is not just technical, it's operational, and you have to report on it. And in a decentralized ecosystem, it's like one Vatican and 50 popes. Everyone has an opinion, but few actually are going to execute. Because it's easy to sit behind the keyboard and throw daggers, right? But who's got the shield? So these things, unfortunately, I always say in Web3, we need adults in the room. Because for far too long, we get into this technical debates that forgets the fact that when your fundamentals are sound, your token price will reflect that, because your storytelling becomes clearer and believable. If your key value prop is obvious and the cognitive load is low and it's simple to use, the story, other people start telling the story for you. It's like a warm introduction. And continue. So I talk about cohorts, right? So cohort-based system, it just makes sure that capabilities are reflected in all of our efforts, even though because you could be decentralized, but you still need some element of centralized, because you still need governance. And it's not a zero-sum game. We saw what happened with Juno. Great technology, great idea, but completely incompetent team. And anyone could argue it with me. No one has challenged that. These are just the facts. Okay? I mean, you could be maxes on that route and forget you have a business to run. It's not a charity. Because what all of this says is never, ever, ever risk your token being the product. The minute the token becomes a product, you are dead. Period. And I've seen this happen many times. So in that process, you still have to report. You still have to have annual and biannual workshops, okay? Sharing knowledge, networking, capacity building among different teams, okay? And then mentorship and support, growth advisory. Those who have been there from the start should be mentoring incoming teams, okay? Evaluate and adjust on a regular, so that's the velocity, okay? And everyone coming in should have a business plan. I see pitches all the time. And 9 times out of 10, my no's have always consistently been great technology. Where's the business? Okay, that's always the question. I get the tech, it's Web3, but where's the business? Oh, we're going to launch a token. Nah, I've heard that too many times. And then beyond evaluation, each cohort, as part of our growth execution strategy, should always have a clear path to financial independence. Even if you're making 1 cent every transaction, it gives you a basis for valuation, okay? Because now that if you're making 1 cent a transaction, what is it going to take for you to get to $1 million? Okay? Then the business starts to emerge. And it shows framework thinking. It shows people are thinking beyond just writing a bunch of lines of code and hoping some way, somehow, it'll all materialize. Now, for teams that may not be a part of cohorts or the primary strategy execution process, there are so many options out there. I think projects should have in Web3 demo day. There's so many tools being built every day that are not being shown off. There's so many people working in a vacuum, right? They should have an ERR program. There should be test teams for cohorts. There should be execution and other growth-related initiatives that are not just technical discussions. That's where most Web3 projects lose the narrative, okay? It's not a measuring contest. And I use that word very diplomatically, right? Because at the end of the day, no one cares. It comes down to execution. I've seen the best tech have the poorest execution, and I've seen the poorest, really terrible technology execute so well, their story became so believable that everybody wonders how the hell are these guys still around? And we know a lot of those. Take Pump.Fun. Interface looked like it walked out of 1989. Okay, but the key value prop is obvious. As questionable as a lot of things happening on Pump.Fun, and they did so well, right? It just tells you you don't need to take a gunship to a fist fight. Anyway, now finally, success metrics being in Web3, quite frankly, should always come back to what are your growth projections? And if TVL applies, of course. In Web3, everyone at some point will generally look at liquidity factors. And what's your current versus projected user growth? A lot of feasibility analysis on legalities, because there's things in different jurisdictions that might impact inflow of capital. And any verifiable liquidity innovations inherent in those projects need to be examined as well, right? And some of those you got to have something that works, no matter how minimally, right? And the active engagement plan has to be believable. And how do you believe that? Again, goes back to storytelling. How easy it is to understand. How clear is the value proposition? And that has nothing to do with consultants. And I tell teams all the time, don't ever, 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 ever pay anyone or any consultant to teach you how to pitch your own project. In my past experiences, way earlier back in the day, you go to all these pitch contests, half of them are consultants, lawyers, and accountants trying to sell you their services. Okay. I mean, the first $1 million I raised back in, I think, 2008, my first investor, he's now chairman of Modo Security. He didn't even sit down for the pitch. It's like, I get the gist, meet me in the lobby and we can hash out the details. And he was the reason I was there. I mean, talk about pulling it back down to earth. So the point I'm making here is the key value prop has to be obvious. The cognitive load has to be low. There has to be a basis for believing that story, but the storytelling has to be simple. Simple scales. If your VC, your investor, your customer your strategic partner, they're all the same. Even your devs and in your ecosystem, right? The easier it is for them to build, the more they're going to build. It's that simple. I just got a question in the general chat. Apologies, I'm just looking into that right now. The question from Alex Nato was, Alani, what do you consider the key components that make a good business plan for Web3? First, you need a product, okay? A usable product. Secondly, you need a believable story. It doesn't have to be a dissertation with an obvious key value proposition. Those three elements, it's what drives a good business plan, because we haven't even talked about a token yet. Tokenomics are not a business plan. A product that's easy. So let me, and I love using Akash because it was just easy. Okay. Airbnb for compute. You can be your own cloud provider. Handshake, same thing. Okay. The key value proposition is obvious. It's undisputable. Everybody wins. Okay. That's a believable business plan. Because if I told you today, everyone here can plug your computer into a network, you can become a host, and instead of paying AWS $1,000 a month, you can pay yourself a validator paying themselves instead of Jeff Bezos. Wait a minute. Now you have an increase in on-chain transactions. Token spend is increased, right? People can go and talk about what they're making. Now they can build businesses on top of that. And Handshake is no exception. Entire industries will emerge if execution follows that path. And that means build the business. The token will follow. I have another question. How do you leverage emerging technologies to sustain a feasible, scalable business growth strategy? I believe I just answered that question. Which emerging technology always requires binding it to a real world use case. Simple. We're not trying to find King Neptune or Poseidon. We're trying to solve for a ship at sea, right? Moving products. That's a believable use case. But saying we want to tokenize the metrics of ocean, no. Now you're getting into territory that requires too much brain matter to even understand. So if we can't simplify our storytelling, we're not ready yet. So you have to be able to tell your own story in a way that's believable and simple. And to all my devs, please, if you got nothing from this conversation, right? There is no greater sense of accomplishment than seeing a 9-year-old, a 13-year-old, or a 90-year-old using your software. Despite all the bragging rights on Twitter about your features and your tech stack and all of that, the happiest time I see devs is when they brag about, oh my God, the grandma just did a swap with my digital wallet. And it's like, aha, right? So just think about that for a minute, let it digest, and growth strategy execution comes down to storytelling and a low cognitive load. Getting a 40 to 50-year-old to use it, and that's a very good point. As a matter of fact, you will be surprised how many 40-year-old and 50-year-olds actually embrace technology. But we've done a terrible job. I mean, there's too much gaslighting in tech generally, and we can do a better job at that. But that being said, my time is up here. Happy to take other questions as time goes on. This was wonderful, always a pleasure. And yes, thank you all.
Shades.
Much appreciated. Nice flamingo, Mr. Victor.
Yeah, I got the shades. I forgot. It's a little bit dark here. That's why. But yeah, thanks so much, Alani. Getting great feedback in the chats, as you can see. And I think this is much needed discussion for the Handshake community, indeed. I think there's a lot of technical talent here. And, in the domain community, it has lots of ideas, but I think it's about execution and simplicity, right? It's the main point that I got from this. But yeah, and we shared your Twitter, and yeah, you've been contributing here in the community at these events for the last couple of years. So, and yeah, I love what you did with Akash, and we're talking about lots of adoption, mainstream. So hopefully this is a year, right? 2025 is our year. What do you think?
I think so. I strongly believe this is the year for Handshake.
Exactly. All right. Yeah, we're let's just jump right into break. And Alani, you'll be hanging out if in the tables if you're available, and others. This will be a table mode session, so we're going to close the speaker session for about 15 minutes, and people can connect with the other speakers or other attendees. You can join a table or make a table. We try our best to do networking online. I know it's not the same as the in-person, but hopefully people can connect with each other. And we'll come back to our next session. We have a few more sessions today, and then, of course, 2 more days as well. So thanks, Alani, for sharing, and we'll see you all in the networking tables.
You're right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
This event wouldn't be possible without our amazing sponsors. Our bronze sponsors, D-Web Foundation, .x, our community sponsors, Handshake Australia, Name